They always say that a single second can change the entire direction of your life. I never truly believed that until the night of my rehearsal dinner, when the man I loved more than life itself showed me who he really was. My name is Maya, and for 3 beautiful years, I thought I was living a fairy tale with Liam. He was gentle, attentive, and everything I had ever prayed for. We were just days away from our wedding, a day I had spent months planning down to the very last detail. I wanted everything to be peaceful and perfect. But there was one constant shadow over our relationship, and that was Liam's mother, Helen. Helen was a deeply bitter woman who ruled her family with a cold heart, and her worst habit was heavy smoking. She didn't care where she was or who was around her. She would light a cigarette anywhere. I have severe asthma, a medical condition that Liam knew about from our very first date. He had seen me gasp for air, he had held my hand in the emergency room, and he knew that cigarette smoke was my biggest trigger. Yet, whenever Helen smoked right next to me, Liam would simply look away and tell me to just ignore it. I stayed silent for years to keep the peace, but as our wedding day approached, I knew I had to speak up. During our rehearsal dinner, the air in the private dining room was thick and suffocating. Helen had already gone through half a pack of cigarettes right at the main table, completely ignoring the venue rules. I could feel my chest tightening, and a familiar panic started to settle in my throat. I looked at Liam, silently begging him with my eyes to say something to his mother, but he just laughed at a joke and ignored me. Taking a deep breath, I leaned over and spoke to Helen as gently as I possibly could. "Helen, please, could you kindly smoke outside? My asthma is acting up, and I really want to be healthy for the ceremony tomorrow." The entire table went completely silent. Helen slowly lowered her cigarette, her eyes narrowing into cold slits. She didn't say a single word. Instead, she looked directly at Liam. What happened next is a moment that will stay burned into my memory forever. Liam stood up, his face twisted in sudden rage. Before I could even realize what was happening, his hand flew across my face. The sharp sound of his slap echoed through the quiet room. My cheek burned with intense pain, and my mind went completely blank. The man who had promised to protect me forever had just struck me in front of everyone I cared about. But instead of crying, instead of breaking down, I just stood there. And then I slowly looked up at him, and I just smiled. The room remained completely frozen. My own family stood up in absolute horror, shouting at Liam, but I didn't hear any of it. My eyes were locked onto my fiancé. In his angry eyes, I didn't see the man I fell in love with anymore. I saw a cruel stranger who valued his mother's bad habits over my literal breath. Liam looked at me, expecting me to sob, expecting me to beg for his forgiveness, like he always did during our small arguments. He thought his physical power would silence me and teach me a lesson. But what he didn't know that day was that his slap didn't break my spirit, it completely woke me up. The heavy fog of love instantly cleared from my mind, leaving behind a sharp, freezing clarity. Helen sat back in her chair with a smug smile, believing she had won, believing her son had successfully put me in my place. Liam took a step toward me, his voice dropping into a harsh whisper. "Don't you ever disrespect my mother again, Maya. You will apologize to her right now, or there won't be a wedding tomorrow." I looked at him, feeling the sharp sting on my face, but inside, my heart was turning into solid stone. The pain was entirely gone, replaced by a deep, powerful strength I didn't know I possessed. I didn't utter a single word of apology. Instead, I quietly reached up, took off my beautiful diamond engagement ring, and dropped it right into his wine glass with a soft splash. I looked at Liam one last time, kept that calm smile on my face, and turned around to walk out of the venue without looking back. My family followed me out, comforting me, but I didn't need tears. I had a plan. Until everything changed that very night, because I realized that walking away wasn't enough. Liam and his mother had spent months using my name and my credit history to book the entire lavish wedding, the luxury venue, and the expensive catering, promising to pay me back once their family funds cleared. They thought they could treat me like garbage and still enjoy a luxury party on my money. I spent the entire night on the phone with the vendors, the venue manager, and the decorators. I didn't cancel the wedding. Oh no, I kept everything exactly as it was, but I legally removed my name from every single contract and paid the small structural cancellation fees. Because I had paid the major deposits, the venue belonged to me until midday tomorrow. I transferred the entire booking over to a local charity event for children, completely free of charge. Liam and his mother thought they were going to have a grand celebration, but they were about to walk into the biggest humiliation of their lives. The next morning, the sun rose on what was supposed to be my wedding day. I sat peacefully in a quiet coffee shop across the street from the venue, dressed in a simple, beautiful sundress, holding a warm cup of tea. Right at noon, I saw Liam's family arrive. Liam was wearing his expensive tuxedo, looking proud and arrogant, while Helen walked beside him, heavily puffing a cigarette right at the entrance. They walked through the grand glass doors, expecting to see a luxurious wedding setup for themselves. Instead, they walked into a hall filled with loud, joyous laughter, colorful balloons, and dozens of underprivileged children enjoying a massive charity feast. When Liam frantically ran to the manager, demanding to know where his bride and his wedding decorations were, the manager coldly handed him a legal notice. I had instructed the management to inform him that the event had been completely changed, and since his name wasn't on the final funding, he was trespassing on private property. Through the large glass windows, I watched his face turn from pure confusion to absolute horror. Helen dropped her cigarette in shock as security guards firmly grabbed Liam by the arms and marched him out of the building in his fancy tuxedo, right in front of all his arriving guests. The public embarrassment was total and absolute. Within days, the story of why the wedding was altered spread through our entire social circle. Liam's reputation was completely destroyed, and his friends distanced themselves from him after learning he had struck his bride-to-be. Because they had relied entirely on my financial stability, Liam and his mother were left with massive debts from the private dressmakers and external planners who came looking for their remaining payments. They tried to call me dozens of times, sending desperate messages begging to talk, but I blocked their numbers without a second thought. Looking back, I realized that the sharp pain on my cheek that night was actually the greatest blessing in disguise. Sometimes, life allows you to be pushed to your absolute limit just to force you to see the reality of the people around you. Liam thought his slap would make me bow my head in fear, but it only made me lift it higher. I lost a toxic relationship that day, but I finally reclaimed my self-respect, my freedom, and my future. And that peaceful realization was the most beautiful victory of all.